Hi, we're going to talk about ratios, our first topic in our new unit. So for a definition, given two fractions, a and b, the ratio of a to b, sometimes denoted as a colon b, is a complex fraction a over b. So some common expressions and some things to make note. When you hear something like the ratio of boys to girls is 3 to 2, what we're talking about is the number of boys to the number of girls. So in this case, the ratio of B to G is 3 to 2. So there's 3 boys for every 2 girls. So what we're doing is we're comparing groups, in this case of people, but it could be groups of different things. They could be the same thing or they could be different. So you can say however many chairs is, what's the ratio of chairs to the number of legs on a chair. So you can compare chairs to legs or tables to chairs or something like that. When we do that, what we're comparing groups multiplicatively, not additively. So we want to know how many groups, how many times can we have groups instead of just adding things together. So ratios have to do with multiplication. All right, so let's take a look at our first scenario. We have a school auditorium with 696 students in it, and the ratio of boys to girls, again, the number of boys to the number of girls, is 11 to 13. So for every 11 boys, there is 13 girls. So out of that 696 students, how many of them are boys and how many of them are girls if we know that we have 11 boys to every 13 girls? So we're going to use capital B for boys and capital G for girls. And to set up our ratio, since we are comparing boys to girls, we have B over G. And B over G in this case is 11 over 13. So what we have is for every 11 boys, there is a group of 13 girls. So for each group of 11 boys, there's a group of 13 girls. So we can also say that using the equivalent fraction theorem, there is one group of 11 boys and one group of 13 girls. But if we add those together, 11 plus 13, we have a total of 24 students. So that's something important to understand also. So if we want two groups, if we have two groups of boys and two groups of girls, then we're going to have 2 times 11, which is 22, and we're going to have 2 times 13, which is 26. So we have 2 groups of 11 boys and 2 groups of 13 girls, and the total, if you add 22 and 26, you get 48 students. If we were to keep doing this, then we can have, it doesn't matter how many groups, so we'll just represent groups with n. So n times 11 for boys and 13 times n for girls. So we don't know how many groups we have, but if we had x or n amount of groups, we would multiply them by 11. So there are n groups of 11 boys and n groups of 13 girls, and if we relate this back to our school auditorium, we need to find what are the groups so that we have a total of 696 students. So let's take this and copy it to our next screen. And we also know, because we have 696 students, we also know that some number of boys plus some number of girls is equal to 696. Therefore, we can say that boys plus girls is 696, or B plus G is 696. Okay, since we know that B is equal to 11n and G is equal to 13n, we can substitute the B and the G with the 11n and the 13n. And doesn't matter which, but they equal 696. So let's go ahead and continue working with 11n plus 13n equals 696. Well, you should be familiar with distributive property, because through distributive property we can undistribute, and in this case we can undistribute the n. So we can pull the n out and we are left with 11 plus 13. So simplifying that, we have n times 24, because 11 plus 13 is 24, and that is equal to 696. So we should be able to recognize this. We can also state this as n is equal to 696 divided by 24 because of division, or the definition of division. So that means the number of groups that we have is 29. So 29 is representing the number of groups. So there's 29 groups of 11 boys and 29 groups of 13 girls. And if we want to find out how many boys and how many girls we have, we just multiply. 29 groups of 11 boys would be 319, and 29 groups of 13 girls would be 377. And if you wanted to check that, then 319 plus 377 is actually 696. So go ahead and use this method and try this on the problem I asked you to work on a couple days ago. In a class of 27 students, the ratio of the number of boys to the number of girls is 5 to 4. How many are boys and how many are girls? So hopefully you've tried this before you started working this out. If not, go ahead and see if you can guess or work through what's going to happen first before you continue the video. So here's your first clue. You need to set up the ratio. If we're talking about boys to girls, and boys goes on top and girls on the bottom. So 5 to 4. Since we don't know how many groups there are, we're going to use n for the number of groups. So we have 5n and 4n. So b is equal to 5n, g is equal to 4n, but we also know that we have a number of boys plus a number of girls is going to equal 27. So we can substitute the 5n for b and the 4n for g, and now we make that equal to 27. Using distributive property, we can take the n out and have 5 plus 4. And when we do that, we have n times 9 equals 27. And by using definition of division, that becomes 27 divided by 9, which gives us 3 groups. So there are 3 groups of 5 boys and 3 groups of 4 girls. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times 4 is 12. And if you check that, 15 plus 12 is indeed 27. Okay, last problem. See if you can do this in its entirety before you reveal the answer. When you continue the video, the answer will show in its entirety. It will not be stepped through. Okay, here is how you would solve this. Again, make sure you set up your ratio. In this instance, it was girls to boys, so it would be g over b. But everything else is the same as far as the process. So go ahead and check and see if you got that correct, and bring these examples to class along with the rest of your notes, and we will go over this in class.